We are live, family. We are live. For those of you who's been wondering what's happening with the remedy, we're having technical difficulties, but we are live right now. So if you can see us, please send us a text. Let us know whether you are on Facebook or on YouTube watching this program. Thank you so much. We're gonna get started. Today we're gonna talk about one of those topics that I think once in a while we hear it around the table, but there's a lot of misunderstanding, or there's a lot of of myth around that topic as well, because people are not educated enough on this. And so today we have a special guest who's going to join us very shortly, who will help us to debug some of the myth that is associated with child adoption. So without any further ado, family, let's get started here on the remedy. All right, all right, all right. So hopefully everybody can hear me. We are doing well. So let me just begin with my beautiful cousin Woody here from New York City. What's happening in New York today, Woody?
It's a lovely day here in New York.
Yeah. The last I
Um,
heard about New York City, I heard it looked like a ghost town. Are things coming back to normal again?
um, no, I don't know. I haven't really been outside, but it is what
Yeah.
it is. Yeah.
All right. All right, Pat. Not too far from that, we have the beautiful Patricia Bermudez. Pat, what's going on?
It is extremely cold. I don't know if you guys can see the sweater that I'm wearing. It is 34 degrees in the Poconos, and I was just reminiscing over the fact that I was in 80 degrees last Saturday on a boat. So I am not the happiest camper. I don't like the cold.
You know what? I think you should move to Michigan. And let me tell
No,
you why.
I've had my share with Michigan. I've had my share with Colorado. I'm good. I'm good. I think where I'm at in the Poconos is the furthest coldest place that I'm gonna be at. I'm good. I'm done with it.
We
But
have
otherwise, we're well.
great, awesome. We have a saying in Michigan, if you think the weather is bad, just wait 5 more minutes,
Of
and
course.
things will eventually change. But I'm
Yes.
glad you're here. I'm glad you can afford to put a beautiful sweater on. So all those are blessings, right?
Yes,
Blessings
they
from
are, and
above.
we're thankful for that.
Blessing from above. We're going up to South Carolina. Miss Cynthia Woodward. How are you doing today, Miss Cynthia? Uh,
I'm well. I'm well. Can't complain. I don't know. It's just dreary outside, a bit cloudy, but this is the South. We could have all four season in one day. So, yeah.
Everybody's talking about the weather today. I don't know.
I was just about to say it's like a weather report
You brought it
happening.
up, Monday.
Uh, I mean, what about the weather? Like seriously, tell me more about South Carolina beside the weather.
Oh, it's a racist state. It's a Republican state. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you.
Oh, moving on,
Corona's
moving on,
rising,
moving
and
on.
people don't think it's serious. So, hey.
Oh well, Pat, we have someone here on the remedy today, and I think it's only fair that you introduce her to the remedy team. And
Yes, Lori actually has been one of my best friends since 1992. She was my first roommate in college. She's actually one of my um, oldest daughter's godmother. She has two, and Lori's one of them. So,
mm,
needless to say, Lori and I are not just friends; we are family. And Lori had the opportunity to have three beautiful girls that she's going to talk about. But Lori, I'm going to let you introduce yourself in terms of what you do. But nonetheless, she's a devout Christian and just a lovely individual.
beautiful. Anything else we need to know about you, Laurie?
I think she covered it all.
Where you work? Where you work? Your
All right. So
occupation.
you want the full intro? Why didn't you just ask me for the full intro before? I am a workforce manager at Montefiore Medical Health Centers. Actually, I work out of New York. I am a mother of 3. I am a member of St. Matthew's AME Church. So I'm a woman. I'm a mother, and I work for Montefiore.
All right.
Besides that, I think you're good. That's a whole picture.
And Lori is on time. Let me tell you, we have a group of girlfriends that we meet with, college buddies, and Lori was the first that we decided to give a Palm Pilot to, because Lori's the one friend that's usually like an hour behind, and you have to remind her. Even today, I'm running late because I had to run errands, and I'm texting Lori, are you going to be on the show? Is everything okay? So I'm worried about Lori instead of me. But she did it. She's on time, and she looks radiant.
It's interesting because prior to the show, she was actually the very first person here, ready to go 10 minutes prior to the show. So I don't know what you're talking about, with her being late. She knows where she can get away with it, and obviously,
I think so. So the next
remedy, look, that's not going to happen.
We all a work in progress. See, I'm all in the process of becoming.
So the next girl outing, Lori, I'm watching you.
Just remember, last get together, I was there on time too. Just to remind you.
Yes, you were.
All right.
Well, family, the reason why Lori it's important to the show today is because we're going to talk about foster care, in particular, adoption. I was reading this article, and it was reported, I think it was from US News and World Report. On that particular article, it was reported that more than 400,000 youth in America are in foster care. That's a lot of young people, and there are at least how should I put this? And all of them are hoping. And to me, that was the thing that really broke my heart as I was reading this. All of them are hoping that someday, somehow, someone will come for them. And so I can only imagine the stress level as a child growing up with that kind of mentality, what that will do to you. So today we're going to talk about foster care. We're going to talk about the ins and outs of foster care, and we want to also clear the air, because I hear a lot of things about foster parents. I hear a lot of things about foster children, and Lori hopefully will help us to decipher truth from fiction. And one of the very first thing that I hear about is that usually those who chose to have foster parents, to become a foster parent, is that they are doing it for the money. So, Lori, would you please help us? Let's talk about the financial aspect of this. But before we even dive into that, why did you personally chose to have a foster child or have foster children?
I chose foster. Well, honestly, from years ago, I always believed that I was going to adopt. It's just, I think, something that my parents and my grandparents have put in me, that if you have something you share, always give a hands up to somebody else. My grandmother was affectionately called the collector in Haiti, because if anybody needed a home, her door was always open. And so I always knew that I was eventually going to adopt. In my mindset at the time, I would be married, have some of my biological kids, and then I would adopt and give back. But that's not the way that God had it for me. So I opted to go into the foster care, because going to adoption and thinking about it, when I started doing the research about adopting and the costs associated with private adoption, is a lot. And I have to tell you, and this is going back maybe 10 to 12 years ago when I looked into it, and at that time, it was in the upwards of $70,000 for private adoption. And my mindset is there are a lot of kids that are out there. And if I have 70,000, instead of giving it to lawyers who have the funds, why don't I use that money and put it in a college fund so my children that I've adopted can have something to do in the future?
Mhm.
So that's one of the reasons when I went to foster care, because the kids are there and they need the love. I had a lot of love to give, and God has blessed me with being able to be financially stable. So that's why I opted for foster care, is because the kids were there. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think it's important for us to also tell the difference between foster care and adoption, and also the process. Because while we kind of it was a great opener. I think it's important for our viewers to understand that they are different. It's different processes, and the system essentially is also different. So if we can go a little bit back, kind of start from that point and go forward.
Okay. Private adoption is you go through a lawyer or through an organization, and it's funded. It's you're funding it. And like I said, at the time when I looked at it, that was a cost, and that was a base. It could go a lot more than that. And private adoption is you could either have a newborn placed and waiting for a newborn to be placed. For the most part, that's where private adoption is, for a newborn placement. You wait for or you could go through, once you wait for the newborn to be placed, the transaction occurs and the baby's born, and they bring them to you, or you go to the hospital and pick up your child, and that's it, period, the end. You're done. Foster adoption, the process I went through was foster to adopt. And that meant that I signed myself up to be a foster parent. And when a child becomes available, then I am first on the list to adopt that child if I was fostered that child. So initially when I signed up, you go through training. And it was interesting because in order to go through this process, you had to go through training. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was a 10-week class, full days every Saturday, to be able to learn the difference of parenting, to learn the difference of taking care of somebody else's child and being able to connect to a child. It's interesting. Earlier today, I was thinking, well, I had to go get a license to foster a child, but then not every parent has to get a license or training in raising a child. And that.
What's the license for? What exactly?
In order to foster a child in the state of New Jersey, you have to have a license by the state. You have to go through a series of classes. You have to go through a series of interviews. You are assigned a social worker that comes in and visit and assess you, the person, your household. They interview your family and friends. You need references. It is a very intrusive process. Very intrusive. Like there is no privacy going through that process. And one of the big challenges is that it's not, if approved, you go through the process, you take the class, you pass the test, the social worker comes in and visits you. The social worker is assigned to you. And if you have a child in your home, the social worker comes and visits your home once a month. If you do not have a child in your home, they come in every 2 other months to maintain your license. To be able to keep your home.
Is that just in the beginning, or is that throughout the whole?
That's throughout the whole process if you are fostering.
Until you adopt.
Once the adoption is final, then you no longer have those visits.
Okay.
When you have a child in your home, you also have a nurse's visit that comes every quarter to come and assess the child, your home, and every member of the family.
Okay. All right. And I think you touched
For
one
you,
of my questions. I was going to ask you what are some of the pros and cons that you see as while in fostering, as a foster mom? What are some of the pros? And I think you mentioned a few of the challenges, but what are some of the pros that you can maybe, speak out to encourage people to maybe look into something like that? I know we talk about the licensing, which are definitely pros for the kids, but some people can also see it as a challenge because you have to make sure you have the time to go and attend. And, like you said, it's extremely intrusive. They really go into your life.
Yes.
So outside of that, what are some of the pros that, you did find, because you did go ahead and adopt the beautiful 3 girls?
I did, and I have to tell you, my 3 girls are my 3rd placement. Initially, I had 2 little girls placed with me, and they were with me for 22 months, and then they were reunified with their biological parents.
And I remember you were heartbroken because you could get attached to them. I remember when they came by, and then when you told me the story, it really hurt me because I remember them coming by. I remember seeing them, and then you have to. I know it must have been hard to kind of restart the process again and not be discouraged.
Now, is that the norm? What happened to you? Is that one of the norm? One of the things that may or may not happen with a
it happens
care?
more often than not, where you have a child placed with you, and because the system is catering to reunifying the family and keeping biological family together, which is a lofty goal, which is great. However, the challenge with that is that you have kids who are constantly being removed from their homes, going back into the foster system, being placed with different people, and these kids have no anchor. Because there's nobody to tell them that, yes, you were removed from your home. You were provided love. Hopefully, prayerfully, you were provided love. You were provided a safe environment. You were taught the right way. And then you're pulled back into a situation where 6 months down the line, 2 years down the line, you're pulled back out of the home. And that's one of the big challenges, especially now you have kids who it's hard to place older kids in foster care because they've gone through so much. And I have to tell you, my oldest, she came into my home at the age of 4. And from the age of 4, the stories that I hear from her at 4 years old, she was in 6 different homes. So how traumatic is that? And how do you provide stability for a child who's been in 6 different homes and not knowing, well, is this the last one or is this a temporary one? And which is one of the biggest struggle with foster care adoption, because you did not provide that child with your morals, your values, your expectations, the warm and comfort of knowing of security. But then you have to do that at a later stage. Depending on the time they come to you, that's when you have the opportunity to provide those emotional stabilities that really cause us to be who we are and cause us to be positive members of society. However, these kids are being yanked in and yanked out. And that's one of the reasons why I opted to go. Like there are so many kids that are needed. They need love. They need support. I can provide that. Why not?
Cynthia?
Yes. Thank you so much, because it's amazing. Not everyone has your heart, and not everyone intention to foster has your heart. Because to be honest, there's a lot of people who they foster for financial reason rather than to love, to care, to show that no matter what your parents did or the circumstances, the love is there. In the state, every state, majority of the states require license to foster, whether to foster for the rest of your life with no adoption, whether your goal is to foster to adopt. In the state of South Carolina, once a child enters foster care, of course, we have to go to court to make sure that the court, they do the ex parte, the court is involved. And then once the child is placed, they have 2 years. The parents have a 2 year gap to do whatever they need to do. In the 2 years, it's either mom or dad follows intensive services, or if they, whatever the reason why the child enter foster care, they have to do some type of training or some parenting, drug, alcohol, whatever assessment they need to get from the parents. And then we have to look for the next kin, the next relative. Now, the sad part is, if any of that does not happen, the parents does not follow treatment, there's no other relative that can take that child, then we go to court to remove the parental right forever and ever from the parent. The parent will no longer have guardianship, no longer have the right to the child. Then the child goes to adoption. Once that step start, the adoption, there's a 2 year process of also with adoption. The first year, you move with the adopted parents, and then the state will give you some type of funding to help, continue to help as well. But the good part and the sad part is, once you have that 1 year, within that 1 year, the state encourage you, if because the child was abused, that's why they enter into foster care. Now, as an adoptive parent, you no longer want that child. Instead of re-abusing the child, the state rather you come and back to the office and say, you know what, this is not working for us, it's not working for me. Then they go back into foster care. The sad part is they're going out. We had one scenario where a parent, adoptive parent, she went through the entire process, got the license, adopted the child. And after that 2 year gap, no, social worker doesn't come anymore. The child is officially yours. You go to court, you sign the paper, everything is finalized. That's your biological, becomes your child. 2 years within that adoption, the biological parent, we abuse the child. And it is a sad situation when people, you go through, it's an intensive, like you said, in the state of South Carolina, as well, it's a 10-week intensive program, because even though you're a parent, to love somebody else's child is two different type of parenting. Because once your child is your child, whatever they do, you're never gonna hurt them to the core. But when it's not your child, I'm getting chills here, I'm sorry, when it's not your child, you're more prone to put damage on that child because it's not biologically yours. And to go through that process and to re-abuse that child, and a lot of people don't understand, when trauma happens, the child bring a wall up to self-protect. It's not like they're bad, they're horrible. Like you stated, your 4-year-old went to 6 different placements. You know how much you had to work to bring that wall for her to trust you again. So it's not like they are bad, they are horrible kids. They're self-protecting through that abuse. Not every home is safe. Some of the foster homes get molested, they get abused, and I could go on and on. But thank you so much for what you have done, because you don't know what you did for those 3 kids.
I have to tell you, people say that to me, but I have to tell you, it's what those kids have done for me.
Amen.
Because in any relationship, it's a give and take. And we each add to each other. One of the prayers that we pray often is, Lord, help us to love each other more each day. Help us to love and support each other more each day. And only through God can we love and support each other each day. So it's not a one-way street. The emotional benefit, as tiring as it can be, and it's a drastic change of life. Drastic change of life. And people ask me, well, why 3? Why do I have 3 kids? Because initially I thought, you know what, I didn't want 1 because some of my family members are a little bit older, and it's like, well, you have a single child, a younger child growing up, and there's no friends or family their age. So I've always said it was 2. But then it happened that when they called me, I said 1. I said okay, and it was literally, it took me my 4-year-old, that we finalized the adoption when she was 6. I had my two youngest, they were 2 and 3. And we finalized the adoptions when they were 3 and 5. So it took the from the time they were placed in my home until the time that the adoption occurred was 2 years for the two younger one and 3 years for the oldest one.
Oh, wow.
And just to mind adding to that, there was a year in between, and then I had the two other kids that I fostered. So literally from the time that I signed the papers and made the decision to go through this process till the time that I closed the adoption was about 5.5 years.
Wow.
But I have to tell you, it was all worth it.
Lori, I don't know you. I really don't. And I'm reading some of the things that are being said about you on Facebook right now. It's overwhelming. And I just didn't want the moment to pass without you knowing that there are people who are watching you, and there are people who really believes that you are an amazing woman with a loving heart. This is for Michelle Donna. She say you are an amazing woman, loving heart throughout the years. You are phenomenal. Another person say that you are a wonderful sister, aunt, and mother, friend, and so on. Um, Another person say you are an amazing woman, a true woman of God. The girls are blessed to have you, and you are also blessed to have them. I'm reading these things just to say that um, uh, adapting, and Cynthia kind of talk about that a little bit. Adapting someone else's child, it takes a lot, and giving love to someone else's, knowing that at any given time you may lose that child. I don't know how the emotional trauma that you as a foster parent, to me, that's, I never hear people talk about that side, because you get attached. This is yours. You don't think, okay, this is a foster child. You're thinking, this is my child, and you are investing time and love and energy and pouring all of yourself into that beautiful being, and only to be ripped out of your life. I listen. I don't even know what to say.
Pastor D, that is the hardest thing that I've ever had to do in my life, was packing those two little girls. And
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
and it's been 7 years packing them up and sending them back. Not the hardest of it is the hardness of the time that I had was not in the concept that they're going back. It's what are they going back to?
Yes, correct.
And to this day, earlier last week, and I happened to speak to the social worker. We no longer have a what's the word? We no longer have. It's no longer what's the word? We no longer have a professional relationship. Everything's done because my adoptions have been final, and I gave up my license to foster. But every now and then when we talk, my thought is, how are the original two doing? And because they took a piece of my heart with them. And I can look at different places in my house. I have pictures of them. Just in case they need to know somebody out there loves them and holds them in their heart, and there's always a home for them to go to. I've always said, I close my home to foster care anymore. If any of those two kids needed me, I would go through that whole process all over again, just to make sure they know that when I said I love them, I meant it unconditionally, unbiased, regardless of what life has done to them. They know that they are loved. And that's what I want to instill in. It's loving unconditionally and providing kids care and love and that security to know that there was always home, because that's what I had. My family raised me. I know I have. And you know what? I'm only who I am because of the love and the environment that I was raised. So who am I not to give that to somebody else?
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you have the love and if you have the means, why not? Because there's so many kids out there that need that love and support.
And if I can piggyback to what Lori has said, Lori is truly a saint on earth. Like I told you guys before, Lori is one of my oldest ones' godmother. I remember when the kids were young, Lori's car, even though she didn't have any kids, were full of my kids' stuff. As soon as they saw her pull up, they would say, Nenin is here, and they know to put their jacket, and they know that we're going out, and she's never tired. She was born to be a mom. I think Lori is like a godmother to a whole village because she just has that innateness when it comes to motherhood. And when she's in a room that has kids, everybody just gravitates to her. But in terms of having having kids pull away, my youngest one is not my biological. She's actually my niece. And unfortunately, she used to live with me with my brother. When my brother passed away, her mother came. Now, my sister-in-law and I have always been pretty cool. So my husband and I had always felt that we have to think of what's best for my niece. When my brother passed away and my sister-in-law came and she took her back, I said, as a mother, she already lost her dad. She needs to be with her mom. And as hurtful as it was for us, we put ourselves back. The kids, my two, always knew Deasia. So I remember when my brother passed away, I felt like it was two loss. It was the loss of my brother, as loss as when her mother came for the funeral, she took her to South Carolina. I would go around the house and said, Ashley, LJ, Deasia. Oh, Deasia's no longer here. So it was two loss, but we needed to do what was best for her. Mm-hmm. She would always call, and I always told her mom, my door is always open, but I need to do what's best for her. If being with her mom after she lost her dad, it's best for her, we totally understand. And one day the mom said, Deasia keeps on crying. She wants to come back. She's known you guys more than me. And I said, totally. And she's been with us since 5. But I totally understand the pain, even though it was different, of not having that person that used to be in a house that is part of your family. People come to me and said, if I didn't hear Deasia said, auntie, I would never know. Because to me, she is my daughter. I respect the fact that she has a mother, and I always want to make sure she has a connection with her mom. But for my husband and I, she is ours as well. And we would do anything. We have done anything. And ironically speaking, we have a trust, and we didn't do that. It was weird because Louis and I didn't talk to each other. And in the trust, we both chose Deasia, if we are in a coma, to be the one to make the first decision than our own biological kids. And it's because we look at her personality and the other two personality, and we both, outside of talking to each other, feel like she's the one that can remain the most calm in a situation and be able to make the most calm decision, the best decision that's needed based on her personality. So it takes a special person to love someone that's not your own. But to be honest with you, the love that we have for anybody, I mean, to me, the love that I have for my niece is no different than the love that I have for the two that I push out, because it's just who I am. It's just who I am. And just knowing that we were able to touch her life is a blessing to us. And I'm forever grateful for that.
Yeah.
Biology is important, but love overcome biology.
Agreed.
I can remember on when I baptized the 3 girls, and I waited till after all 3 adoptions were completed. And when I baptized them, one of their godparents said, some people love for their kids grow below their heart because they're carrying them, and that the love grows below their heart. And then some people, when you adopt or when you foster, your love grows inside your heart. Because they never got a chance to go below your heart to instill that love, but that love's grow from within your heart to go out, and that you can never get rid of that.
Yeah.
And that's what adoption brings, is being able to provide being able to love somebody from within your heart and coming outward. And when that love comes out, not only you have it, that child has it also. And that child, because there's a separate relationship with adoptive kids. Even if they know that they're adopted, or if they don't know that they're adopted, is that mechanic of it is completely different. So being able, the adoption offers you the ability to love from within your heart and pouring that out.
Yeah.
And for me, Lori, I don't ever want my niece to feel like, you could feel like you're different, but I don't ever want you to feel like you less than anybody else. That's extremely important to me in my household. I don't ever want her to feel like she's any less than anybody else. And actually, I've had my biological daughter on many occasions said, yeah, we know Deasia get away with this. We know where I would sometimes say something to my biological daughter because she got a mouth on her and I got to check her a lot of times. Deasia, actually, she's going to be a psychologist. She has the personality to even out everything. And it means a lot to me for people to have, for the whole house to have that level playing field. Everybody get treated the same. We're in a household, and it's easier for me because it's family. But nonetheless, I always try to ask myself, is she okay? Specifically as, she's getting older. She became a teenager. She's no longer that 5, 6, 7-year-old where everything is okay. So how are you visualizing things? Are you feeling like you are completely incorporated? Are you feeling like we're doing too much? We're not doing enough. So for us, it was a matter of, we want to make sure where the biological ones sometimes don't need to question themselves. The ones that's not specifically in my household, the ones that's not the biological one, we want to make sure, are we doing everything fair enough that she doesn't ever have to question herself?
Woody?
Hi, yes, I have 2 questions. Actually, I have a couple more, but for now, these are 2. One is to Cynthia in particular. I've heard that kids sometimes, like Lori also just mentioned it, a child being taken out and placed into other foster homes. If the child is in a healthy environment, what is the reason for displacing the child and putting them back into the system? That's question 1. And to Lori after, can you talk about the difficulties, or if there are any, of being a single woman adopting children?
Yeah.
Okay. I was on mute. So Rudy, sometimes like when a child enters foster care, of course, you have a social worker that goes to the house and do home visit. Now, when the home visit occur, they speak with the foster parents, and then they take the child separately to speak with the child. And if the child disclose any information that can potentially be traumatic or potentially can become abusive, then the agency will start looking for other placement. Or sometimes the child behavior is too overwhelming for the foster parent, where the foster parents say, I cannot do this anymore. Then based on the behavior, we will have to place them in therapeutic foster care. So that's why one would move from one foster care to another. And then sometimes they run away to go to their birth parents.
Well, I was curious because I know Lori said that she'd had kids taken away from her home. And so for me, like, if it's I'm curious if there is this kind of like thing that they do where they give people, I mean, there's like stereotypes about foster homes, right? So I'm wondering if there's like a time limit that they put in on certain homes and then they take you out and put you back in and go back. I wonder if there's anything like that. That's what.
The job of an agency, any state agency, their job is reunification. Now, if the parents are doing what they're supposed to do to reunite with the child, whether they are in a safe environment at the foster care, is the best to the agency standard. It is the best for the child to go back to mom and dad or mom. Now, what does mom and dad or oh wait, I'm sorry. So when the child goes back home, the state require what? Food, shelter, and that's it. And now, if you were in a foster care, you have your own private room, your own private bathroom, you're more at ease, you're more comfortable. And then you come to your parents' house, you're sharing one bedroom, one room with 4 or 5 different siblings. And then, I'm sorry guys, my coworker.
She's being a foster parent.
It's okay.
All right.
But I can say something, Wendy. I know that one of my girlfriends, our girlfriends, had her kids taken away, and I know what it after she fought many times, and when it was time for them to bring them home, I remember I was actually one of her character witness that the state had to talk to, and ensuring that even when they were home, when they would have the meeting, so literally I would vouch for helping with the parents to make sure they had a stable home. And for about a year or so, whenever they had meetings, I would have to be part of the meetings with the state to make sure that the kids were okay before they would consider totally out of the system with their parents.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sorry,
I wanna. It's okay. If I may.
Can we have Lori follow up with the question? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Go ahead, Lori. I forgot about that. Thank you, Lori.
The adage, it takes a village to raise a child. I am truly blessed that I do have a village. So as a single person adopting, I really do. I've always said, I can't truly say that I'm a single mother because I do have a village surrounding me. I have my family.
Well, did the system make it harder for?
Go ahead. Because I have I have my family to help support. I have my church family that supports me 100%. And then I have other people that are like the sitter that I have that watches the kids when I'm at school, when I'm at work. From the church member who picks them up from school and takes them to the sitter on days that I'm running late. Being able to call and say, I'm stuck in traffic because I work in New York and I live in New Jersey. And that traffic is no joke. And sometimes it can take me 2 hours to get home. To being able to say, a godparent, I'm stuck in traffic. Can you go and pick up the kids for me? And knowing that 1, they'll be safe. 2, they'll pick them up. They'll feed them. They'll do their homework. And by the time I come back home, I'm able to do what I have to do. So it does take a village. I am a single person, but I wouldn't say I'm a single mother because I do have a village surrounding me. So if what I can offer, anybody who is single and wants to go through the process is create your village. Because I have to tell you, I have family members and friends who are a couple and who have kids, biological or adopted. It takes a village. You can't do it by yourself, and don't try to do it by yourself. Even if it's just a matter of a godparent call me, Lori, I want to take the kids to the movies for the afternoon so I could have 2 hours to sit at home, put my feet up, and be in peace and quiet. So it's just creating that village and that support system that you could always count on. And what very funny to me is I remember doing that for Patty with her kids and coming in and picking them up and just going away. So just so you could have that peace in mind and knowing that your child is safe, but then for you to be able to sit back and breathe. So it does take a village to raise a child. So if you are a single person who is looking to adopt, start working on building your village. And there's people out there all across the world, even through the adoption agency or to the foster care system. There's a network that you can reach out, that you have people that you can actually trust that will be able to provide you that support when needed. And one of the biggest things that my work always said is like self-care. You can't give anything if you don't have anything else. So it's just creating that balance of being able to take care of yourself, being to be able to provide, and creating a village to be able to help support you.
I have two questions for you, Laurie. Sorry, Can I go?
Yes.
Absolutely, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm taking. Sorry.
No, you're fine. My first question is, did you do a closed adoption? And then my second question, because you're a single person, was it hard for you, for the state to do it with you because you're a single person? Those are my two questions.
Okay.
Cynthia, can you explain what a close adoption is so that the audience would know?
Okay. A close adoption is when the birth parent and birth relative does not know where the child is. And open adoption it's when the birth parent, the siblings, any relative of that birth parent can still remain contact with the adopted child.
Shortly, I know who both birth parents are.
Okay.
I have met them. And initially I did try to keep an open relationship with the kids, but then it was counterproductive and it was harming the kids.
Okay.
My oldest does have a relationship with her older sister. And because it's positive, it's healthy, and it's not counterproductive. I think being able to decipher that what is in the best interest for the child, I think is important. The youngest two, they have the same mother. Initially, I did try to keep in contact with her, and I did take them. They did not know where I live. They don't know where I live. They are not in my circle, but I made up a option for them to be able to still keep in communication, but that fell by the wayside.
Oh, wow. Okay. Thank you.
The question, I guess, for me, I want to ask you is simply this. And this is, again, based from, movies and whatnot. Sometimes the information is not accurate. Why is it that some children are quickly to be adopted, and some children can go through the system and they continue to remain in the system? Do you have a say as a adopted parent who you receive into your home, or do they make that decisions for you? I mean, to me, it doesn't make sense why some kids stay in the system way longer than other kids.
I know I was offered the choice. I was asked, what age group did I want? And I chose the age group between 2 years old and 4 years old. And that was a personal choice. From what I know is a lot older kids are harder to place. And I know people who have adopted older kids, and it's the best way I could explain it is that as a parent, you do not, if it's an older child, you have not put in, and I'll quote a trainer I had, it says, you did not put that coat on that child. You did not give them their values. You did not give them their hope. You did not give them their faith. You did not offer, you're coming into something that's completely already done. So basically an older child, what the experience that I've heard is that you kind of have to, you're starting with something that's already built, and then you have to take it apart and rebuild it as compared to a younger child, although they're developed, but there's a lot that you could offer in creating those moments and creating that foundation for them to build upon. So a lot of time people stray away from adopting or even fostering older child that I have experienced is because they don't have a say in how that child was. And it's like, for lack of a better word, and I hate to say it that way, is you don't know what you're getting. You don't know the values they have. You don't know what behaviors they have. So it's a lot more challenging.
The older the child, the less likely it is for that child to be adopted. So what happened to that child? Do they get what they call loss in the system? What happened to that child?
In the state of South Carolina, they age out. So they, at the age of 18, they graduate from high school, they go to college. They can give them funding until 21, where they help them buy a car. They help him. It's either if they want to get an apartment, they help them and they stabilize them until they know financially they are able to do certain things on their own, and then they're by themselves. And some of them, even though they age out, they always do what? Go back to search for their birth parents, because they have this emptiness inside of them to know why throughout my entire life you did not want me.
Yeah. Pat?
Lori, once you adopt, do you receive any type of financial money? Is there anything that's given, health insurance? Because I can see someone wanted to adopt and unfortunately maybe continuously to be a foster, even though they mean well, but if they don't have the money once they adopt that's coming from the government to help them, that might handle them from actually adopting. They would probably continue to foster. So is there anything that the state give you past adoption?
It depends on the child and it depends on the case. There are kids in New Jersey that either after adoption that they remain on state Medicaid for healthcare, and they're eligible to stay on state Medicaid for healthcare until they are 21. And also there is a stipend, but it goes from case by case. It's not a flat out all the time that you will get a stipend continuing as a child grows.
Okay. Thank you.
Woody?
2 questions. I know there was I don't know the race of your daughters, so I'm correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm assuming that they're Black. Was it important for you to make sure that you adopted Black kids? And also, did you at any point think about adopting internationally? Because I know that there's some controversy about people who adopt kids from other countries, because from what I've heard, that it's a little bit easier to adopt a child from another country. Was that ever part of your thought process? And 2, was the race of your children important to you?
All 3 of my kids are African American. I don't know that it was important to me that I stress on the application that I wanted only African American. I think it's a child that needs help. I can provide the help. They don't get to choose. So personally, it's not something that came to mind in thinking about it. International adoption, and actually I did start the process for an international adoption, and I stopped it because it was just getting to be a lot. It's financially it's a lot, and legally it's a lot with immigration and going through that process. And so even though the country you're in, there are certain countries where the laws are different, where you could finalize the adoption, but then immigrating that child to the U.S. proved to be a problem. So I started that process, but then I stopped it in the middle of the process because of the battle between once you get the child is getting them to be immigrated into the U.S. And then there was a lot of questions. And at that time, if the immigration process was going to work, and then what happens if it does not work. So at that time, I made that decision that, you know what, that at this time where I was, that wasn't the best for me.
Yeah, I also wanted to ask. Again, I'm this is new to me and so many levels. If you're in the process of adopting a foster child, obviously you have no idea who they're gonna give you. Um, what if you are giving a child with a disability? Do you then also receive additional help for that particular child, because obviously the need is going to be greater? Um, do you get to say yes or no? I still want to know. Do you ever get a chance to say yes, I want that child, or no, I don't like the look that that child gives me already from the get go at the door. He's looking at me funny. I
What's the
want to keep it
attitude?
real, if you know what I mean. Okay.
Yes, and
I hear a lot of negative things about getting a foster child. Some parents don't want to do it, especially if they have other siblings, if they have other children in the home. They don't want to bring a kid who's going to challenge them. They don't want to bring a kid who's going to start cursing and throwing things out. I mean, they want to know, if I'm bringing someone home, I'm going to be able to. And I understand why it's important for some people to have a younger child, because it's so much easier. But my thing is, just because it's harder, again, I'm talking from um, um, uh, a psychological perspective here. But just because it's harder doesn't mean that they cannot be lovable kids.
oh,
They just challenge you a little bit more. You know what I mean? So I
absolutely.
almost feel like it is so unfair for the older kids to be penalized for the psychological issues that they accumulate over the years. And it's almost as if the older they get, the worse it's going to be, and the worse it gets, no one's going to want them. So I can only imagine, what that feels like for a young kid.
Heartbreakingly, you've hit the nail on the head. That does happen. And a lot of the kids that are in the system, there is a need for people who are willing to accept older children. Um, they come with a different layer of challenges. If you handicap children, like you said, they do have additional benefits. They are entitled to all benefits by the state, based on the state, to still maintain all those benefits, even handicapped children with adoption and versus foster care. Did that answer your question, or did
Yeah.
I skip? Okay.
No. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. What would you say, speaking from experience, to someone who's in their 40s, late 40s or why not, and they are considering adopting a child? Would you say it will be beneficial to them to get a child a little bit older than to start with a child who's younger? Or that
Is that you, Pastor D? Are you
I'm
going to
asking
adopt a
here.
child?
I'm asking. You never know. Maybe the pastor is thinking
offering.
about it, right? Do you think it
That's
might be a easier uh what's the word here,
transition.
transition for the child and for the person?
Transition.
Yes,
Transition.
yes.
I have to say, I had maybe about a couple weeks ago, it might have been a couple of months ago. I had that same conversation with somebody uh, in her mid 50s, and I said, you know what, maybe a young child is not, but you know what, you have so much love to give. Be open to getting an older child. They're a little bit more independent, and as we're older, we're looking forward to our kids to be more independent. So at late 50s, maybe getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning to feed a baby and then getting up at 6 o'clock to go to work might not work for you. But you still have the financial means, you still have the love to give. An older child who's a little bit more independent comes with more challenges, but that may work better. That is my personal recommendation that I gave to a very close friend of mine who asked me. I said, you know what? You can still look into it and it still might work for you. You just might not be able to take a younger child based on your work ethic, the hours that you have put in work. Maybe having a child that needs you home for 8 to 16 hours a day is a little bit challenging, but then maybe an older child who you can be able to set them up and be able to provide still the love, the support. Everybody just needs to have a home.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just too many kids out there that do not have a home.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to provide that home, regardless of the age, but know who you are. You just have to know who you are to be able to provide that support.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One of the myths around that that I hear often is that, well, you can't really adapt because to be able to adopt a child, you have to be financially stable, you have to be wealthy, you have to own your own home. So are these actual facts or are those myths?
You have to be, I know from me, I can only speak from my point of view. You have to be able to provide a home for the child. You have to be able to provide a room for the child. Going to foster, if you're fostering, then there's a state subsidy that you're provided that helps. And I'm just going back to the first question asked. Yes, they do provide state subsidy, but if you think that that subsidy is going to raise the child, provide for the child, or you're doing it for the money, you're sadly mistaken. It helps, but if you don't have nothing else to bring to the table, it's not a very pretty picture. It's a subsidy. It's to add the
Lori,
icing
I'm
on the
so
cake.
glad you brought that up because
Go ahead, Rudy.
Lori, I'm so glad you brought that up because I think that I know we're talking about it on the show, but there's this like almost focus on compensation as if, you're getting a lot of money, but when you're dealing with someone and dealing with trauma and also raising a child, I don't know how much compensation you can really get, from the state to help deal with the emotional sometimes turmoil that these kids go through. I do have to say though that like I've always been open to the idea of adoption. I've never felt like I needed to have a child from my body for it to be mine. I don't have kids now, but I've always considered adoption. I know that you're Haitian, and in Haitian culture, I've heard people say like, if the child is not from you, then they're not yours. Have you gotten into any kind of like I don't want to say altercations, but experience anything where someone has said, well, you're not really their mother or anything like that?
There was an incident, and it was earlier on, and I had to put the person in their place. Love is love.
Good for you.
There is a lot of people who can give birth to a child, but does not know how to mother a child. And there's a lot of people who can mother a child, but who does not have the ability to birth a child.
Right.
So, and so when things like that happen, it's like, you're writing yourself out of my life, and I'm okay with it.
Agreed.
Because these are my kids. And I am fortunate and highly blessed enough that I'd have to say 98% of my environment, 98% of my village know that these are my kids. And if you see us, you won't know that there was no blood. And a lot of people have said, your oldest looks so much like you. Or no, the best one is, your youngest looks so much like your mother. But God has a way of making things work. He does, because I'm like, some people know that they're adopted, and a lot of people don't know that they're adopted. And even they and I have left it up to them who they say that they're adopted to or not, because they all are aware of it, and they all had lives before they came to me, and they understand it. And it's just a matter of, I'm going to be the mother bear and protect my kids.
And I have to say, Lori was already an exceptional human being. These wonderful girls have really made Lori even a better human being. The relationship when you see them together, or even when I call, and the craziness of the house, and now they're being homeschooled. It's just I wouldn't be able to tell, to be honest with you, that's not Lori. And that was never a thing for me with Lori, because again, I've seen Lori with my kids. I've seen Lori with everybody else's kids. Lori and we drove to Canada when Ashley my oldest one was only, Ashley was 8 months, and I was just pregnant with LJ, and we got stuck in like this weird place, and I'm like panicking, and she's like, "Patty, you okay?" And she's grabbing Ashley, and it was always very innate in her. And we were young, and she does that with everybody's kids. She does that with everybody's kids, and everybody knows when Nenen. Till now, my kids are grown. As soon as they see her, Nenen, she's Nenen to everybody. She's Nenen to my kids and Nenen to everybody, and everybody knows that she just brings the warmth and the mother and the maternal instinct in her, and it just works.
Udi?
Oh, I was going to say, there's something I would say. One, there's a saying that if you feed a child long enough, they look like you. And so, and then also there is a book called Child of the Heart, and it is about adoptive parents, and many who are like celebrities that we know who adopted and we don't. And if anybody's interested in it, they should read it. It's called Child of the Heart.
I have a question for you. Did you change their names?
They maintained their first names because they were older, and I gave them middle names.
Okay. And then your last name, of course.
And my last name, yes.
This is a question for Markel on YouTube. He's asking, what can we do more of to help the biological parents who want to be in their child's life but are not fit enough to be a present parent?
Well, as a social worker, from a social worker point of view, it all depends on what caused the child to enter into foster care. Granted, any agency that you look for, the point of it is to win family reunification. But when the parent is becoming a problem, like toxic, where they're not following what they're supposed to do, you put more harm for that child than anything good. So as harsh as it sounds to have no contact with a biological parent, is better for the child. But now when the child is adopted, if you see, like Lori stated, she saw that, okay, let's start. And then when she saw there's a problem between what she's instilling with the child and what the parents are giving, is contradicted itself, then you have to stop, because at the end of the day, the child has gone through enough trauma to continue to put trauma. So it's either you cut it or the parent do what they're supposed to do to have that relationship. Now, when the child turned 18, that's on them. But as a minor, you have to protect them the best way possible.
And it has to be what is in the best interest for the child, what is healthy. Because initially, like I said, once a month, I used to take them down, and they would sit there, and it would be, we'll have lunch together. And I was there the whole time, because then I was not going to re-injure the children. And that's the thing. You have to, it's great to try. And if it works, and I'm sure it would have been beneficial if it was going to work. But when what's causing more harm, then I had to stop it. It's being able to have that flexibility.
So any final words right now? Let's just again assume that someone who's watching this program right now is contemplating on going that route. Where should they begin? With prayer, or with a phone call to the social service? talk to their family first before they go into this, because again, it takes a family. It's not a one person's job. How do you even begin that process? Is it either as a single person or as a married person? What should they do?
Pray first. Pray first. And discuss it with your inner circle. Because like I said, I know I could not have done it if I was by myself. If I had no support, it would have been 10 times harder to do this if I was by myself. So look at your support, pray about it, and make sure it's the right decision for you. Because and I think one of the, what was important to me is this is not a 2-year decision. This is not a 5-year decision. This is a lifetime decision. And be ready to do it as a lifetime decision. Because one of the things that came and even before I signed the adoption papers, I knew in myself that this was going to be the last home that these kids would ever know. So you have to be sure that it's the right decision for you. And once it is it going to be challenging? Absolutely. Is it going to be hard? Absolutely. But the benefits definitely outweighs the pain. Just the joy, just getting up in the morning and having my daughter bring me a cup of coffee, just out of the blue. Or, oh, mommy, I just came to give you a hug. Those benefits outweighs every moment of pain, anxiety, intrusiveness, just frustration. The benefit definitely outweighs all the negativity.
Yeah. I mean, there is something.
Lori, I have another question for you.
Yeah, I was just
I have an internet delay, so I can't tell when people are talking and I'm not talking, so I apologize. I have a question, Lori. How do you bring, if you have a person that's going to be a potential partner, how do you bring them into this situation?
Okay, can you repeat the question again? Can you repeat the question again?
My internet is bugging today. Yeah, my question was about if you may have, like, if you're thinking about like a potential partner or dating, how do you bring someone that you're dating into that situation?
Very good question. Yes.
Right, to me, I'm a package deal. It's a package deal. Yes, initially, once you, the same way that if I had biological kids and I was dating, and how do I introduce them? When do I introduce them? I have to tell you, I think within the 5 years, I think my kids have met one person that I dated. Because the fact is that, one, I don't want to introduce somebody into their lives that I know is not going to be hanging around. That comfort level, I have kids. I have 3 kids. I'm a mother of 3. If you want to, okay, let's try this. But then you're not going to be introduced. You're not going to enter. You're not even going to know of them until I feel that this is something that's going to last. So introducing it to somebody, it's different if you're introducing it to somebody that you're going to go into the process with, and co-parent, as compared to, this is something that I know I need to do. This is something that I'm going to do. And are you on board with doing this? Or is it has to be that I'm going to be a parent. I'm in the process of becoming a parent. And the possibility of you accepting me but you're not accepting me as a single person, you're accepting me as a parent. Even going through the process, because then dating with kids and versus dating as a parent is completely different. And dating as a single person is completely different. So it's just being a matter of, once you make the decision, if you're not partnered with somebody that you're making the decision together, is once you make the decision is ensuring that that person is on board from the beginning. And then you have to make a decision. And I hate to say this decision, it's either you or my kids. And so I'm always going to take my kids.
And to me, that is part of the unselfish act from you, because we are in our 40s, and the challenge of having someone step in while it's just you is definitely less than you and 3 kids, not just 1, not just 2, 3 kids, and we are women of color. And it just, again, put another plus in my book as it relates to you, and always having the best in mind and not being selfish, because there are a lot of people that would say, you know what, it's going to be harder for me. It's going to this. What you saw is that these 3 kids needed a home, a stable home, and a loving home. And you were able to provide that. And anything else, you know what? God is good. It'll be what it will be. And I appreciate you for that.
I have one more question, if that's okay. After adoption, did you do therapy with them, or it wasn't necessary?
We had therapy within the last year, overlapping before and after.
Okay.
And then it was not necessary, and it's still a possibility, an option. If I feel that it's something that's required, that I can always open up again. But part of me at the time was like, we need to meld as a family.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to be able to trust and count on each other, as opposed to having to go outside to do it. And I wanted to create that bond with them where it's like, I'm your mother, so if you have something's going on, we need to discuss it and grow there as a family, as opposed to, because I think sometimes, and this is from an experience from another family that I know, where they never got a chance to create a bond, because it was always, I can always go out. I can always call a social worker. I can always call, but they never was able to create that bond to count and trust on each other before going outside.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always left the door open. If it's something that we need to discuss, then absolutely. But let's try to create that bond and that family unit as one now. And then in the future, if they need it and if they want it, absolutely, it's always open to them.
Okay.
Yeah. And I guess in the process, it's needless to say that before you adopt a child, that you have to pass a criminal background check, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Correct.
Hallelujah. Good. All right.
Sex abuse as well. Sexual registry as well, to make sure you're not a registered sex offender. They do that.
Okay. And there's another question. Did you ever get hit with the, you know what, you're not my mother comment from the kids? And so, what does that do, or how do you feel about that?
I know I've heard it. And this happened earlier on in the process. And it was a hot poker right through my heart. It was like, what do you mean I'm not your mother? But you know what? Even biological kids will have those statements.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yes, at the time I was like, oh my gosh, I don't believe she said. And then it was like, but you know what? You hear that from my peers who have biological kids, like, she says she hates me. I'm like, I'm sorry.
Right.
But so certain things, certain statements are just kids being kids in the moment. And you have to be open to that.
Yeah.
Right.
And to add to what Lori said, I remember about 10 years ago, a friend of mine came here and, seeing the relationship with me and Deasia and the kids. And she was like, when she becomes a teenager, she's going to tell you, you're not my mother. I said, well, first of all, she's called me auntie. So, but she's like, well, you know how teenagers say. And I'm like, how is that going to be any different than what LJ says? It's not about that. It's about the fact that they are teenagers. They're going to say it. And I cannot see it differently coming out of her mouth versus my kids. And I think that's what a lot of people do, is that, because it's your biological, you kind of say, okay, that's expected from my biological, but she should definitely act differently because I did more. No, it's not about that. It's about, I love you And you have to be you. You have to go through your teenage years. You have to go through your adulthood. And guess what? The same thing one can say to me, the other one can say it. That's what it should be about. And as a parent, that's what we should be thinking about, and not thinking about there's a difference to if it comes out of one mouth versus the other, because she owes me more because she's my niece. She doesn't owe me any more than the other two owes me. Actually, in fact, kids nowadays don't owe you anything. So
what do you mean nowadays?
Not nowadays, ever. Not ever. Never, ever, ever.
You know? So I think for us as well, as parents, there's some things that we need to tell ourselves, that we're not going to treat which one of them different or expect anything from one versus the other just because we didn't push them out. I think it's something that it's on both sides. They're going to react like kids, and they're going to do their stuff. They're going to go through their teenage years, and then they're going to bounce back. That's what they do. And I think that's how we need to think about it, and not think that there should be a difference.
And this is the reason, and I'm glad that you guys brought that up, because again, I'm thinking about those kids who are older, and I think one of the reason that they are not getting adopted, it's because the challenges are so much deeper. Because those kids, they're gonna have a mouth, they're gonna stand up to you, they're gonna be in your face, they're gonna break things, they're gonna break the walls. But again, if you step outside of yourself and realize, what, I'm dealing with a teenager, and as a teenager, that's how they behave, that's how they act. I still need to figure out a way to show that kid that there is a right way, there's a wrong way. I still need to show the kid that I'm here with you, I'm here for you. We're gonna disagree sometimes, but at the end of the day, I love you with all my heart. So it's important to find a way to establish that. And unfortunately, at that age, they don't trust you. They can't trust you. And I'm saying all that for those who are watching to understand that. Think about it this way. You by the time you turn 15 or 16, you've been to 13 different homes. So what are you? Who are
That's
you?
nothing.
And how do I know that what you're gonna do is gonna be any different than those 13 people before you? And so it takes a lot from you as a parent, but it takes even much more from that child to reopen that wound and allow you in, and hopefully allow you to help heal that wound that's open. And it takes a lot. It takes a lot. So lots of prayer. Someone on Facebook say, pray to God, and God will help you and give you the tools. I wish, I'm still waiting for someone to write that book, How to Raise Up a Child. From the time the child comes into the world, it will be a best time. I mean, bestseller, but it's not out there
No,
yet.
there are books. They just don't know what they're talking about.
They have no idea. They have no idea. It's trial and error.
Yeah.
Mia say this topic was for her. Such a touchy topic for me. It is a touchy topic. But at the end of the day, those kids are children of the living God.
Amen.
They have love to give. They also need love. And if we remember them that way, if we remember that this could have been me, this could have been one of your kids. God forbid something were to happen. So we are fortunate enough that we can raise our own, but just because you can raise your own doesn't mean you're not qualified to raise someone else's. And just because you don't have any kids yourself doesn't mean you can't be a foster parent either. You're going to go through the struggle. You're going to make some mistakes. But just like any other parents, we learn as we go. So, Lori, on behalf of the Remedy, on behalf of we just want to say we appreciate you, we thank you, we value you for what you are doing in the lives of 3, not 1. You didn't just try this once and say that's enough for me. No way. I'm done. You say no, give me more. I wanna adopt some more. I wanna share love and give those kids a stable place. So um kudos to you. This is really, really, really important work that you are doing. We appreciate you, we love you, and anytime you want to come back to the remedy for another show to talk about this topic, our doors are always open. So
Or
with
other
that in mind,
topics.
Yeah, any other
Or other
topic.
topics.
any other topic.
Like you said,
You know,
we
like listen, I don't want to be in your business, but I understand that you only brought one person home um during the time you had the kids.
In 5
We
years.
can bring that as a conversation to a We're talking about dating with
Yes,
kids.
dating.
dating with kids.
Yes.
Dating with kids.
Oh, that's a whole different topic.
Yes.
It can be easy, I'm sure. But I'm sure there's always someone out there who's looking for a family with family that they can love and so forth. So we love you. We
Are you
thank you.
now a dating service? Is this a dating thing now?
Listen, when you come to the remedy, when you come to the remedy,
The remedy for all, huh?
when you come to the remedy, you never know what's gonna
You
happen.
never
Okay?
know what medication you're
never
gonna get, right?
Yeah. So, well, thank you, family, and to those of you on Facebook and on YouTube, Michelle, Mia, Naomi, and Sister Gordon, Markel, Donna, Wendy, and Andrea, Pamela, and Guillaume, and
Andrew.
All of
so
them.
many others. We want to say thank you so much for participating and being part of the show today. We love you. We appreciate you. And we want to remind you next week, our season finale. Okay, so if you don't want to miss next week's show, I'm just letting you know right now. Okay, and we also want to say a happy birthday, a special happy birthday to. We have a few people who are actually celebrating birthdays this month. We have Woody and Pat. Can you guys help me out with the list? I know we have Uncle Robert.
We have Uncle Robert. We had your daughter Mindy. We have Lionel, our cousin. We have Ayla, our cousin. We have Funzi, our cousin. Woody, can you think of anybody else? Oh,
We have
Jessica.
Eve, my nephew. Yeah, no, we have Eve, my nephew, Jessica's
Yeah.
my sister, Robert is my dad, Danielle is my niece. So yeah, it's a poppin' month. That Valentine's Day was great.
Yeah. So we want to wish them happy birthday. Family, let's pray before you leave. Lord, we just want to say thank you for Lori, and thank you for giving us so much love to bestow upon these children. And we pray, family, that perhaps there's someone who watched the show today, and because of what she shared, they're gonna respond positively to raise a child of their own out of the foster home. Father God, I ask that you will bless that union, that you will bless each and every one of us, Lord. Continue to install in us the desire to love children, to love those who need a special kind of love. We thank you for adopting us into your own family by giving your son, Jesus Christ, for each and every one of us. We love you. We thank you, Lord. In Jesus' holy name we pray. Amen. Amen. Family, I thank you once more.
Amen.
I love you. We'll see you next week on the season finale here on The Remedy.